Okay, my apologies. My apologies. So I've stated before that my issue with Brian Banks is that Brian Banks does not talk to black men, and I basically had a struggle. I kind of found this video by suggestion, but I found other two interviews uh, featuring Brian Banks with two white men. But I haven't seen any. I haven't really seen many or any videos of him being interviewed by black men, and pretty muchly black men. I'm not talking about your Mark Lamont Hills. I'm not talking about your um, your liberal left leaning um, go with the flow Trevor Noah type black man that doesn't like ruffling feathers. Um, and I'm kind of curious how this interview will go, knowing that I believe his name is Jason Whitlock. He's not afraid of being controversial, mainly because he's one of those, I would say, I would say he's one of those on the contrary type Negroes. You know, basically a Negro that just kind of toeing the side of the unpopular opinion. I don't really think he's all that original, but he has challenged the gynocracy before, so I'm kind of wondering if Jason Whitlock will ask the questions that I wish I could ask Brian Banks or that other people should be asking Brian Banks. We don't care about your positivity in prison and and you know how your mama held you down. We want to know, how does it feel as a black man to be falsely accused by a black woman, actually by black women, by your own friend and her own mother? How does it feel?
Brian, for those that don't know, you spent 5 years in prison for a rape that you did not commit. You were falsely accused. You were headed to USC, perhaps on a football scholarship, and perhaps even to the NFL.
Yeah.
I reread your story this morning. I remember it when it first came to
Yeah.
light, but I reread it this morning, and I was so emotional just reading the facts of the case. And the first thing I thought was like, how are you not consumed by bitterness having
Yeah.
gone through that level of injustice?
Yeah.
And I could answer that question for him based off his other interviews. He can't believe that he wants to give black women a second chance. That this was a fluke. This was just him being collateral damage, and that he wasn't the real target. And this is kind of something that he lullabied himself. I think it's probably due to the coddling of his mother, especially since you notice there's no mention of his father. There's no reaction. We don't even know if his father is in his life. So let's see what he has to say.
In there, I lived it. People that hear my story, they hear it for the first time, and you're enraged. This is something that I've been dealing with for years now, and throughout those years,
And I have no doubt that he was enraged, but like I said before, it's the gynocracy that took over. Because if he was just an angry black man, he wouldn't have gotten that movie. He wouldn't even had the book. He wouldn't even be here. He would just be another black man that's like, oh, I think I heard of him, and that would have been it. So he also, with him being passive, is where he got his confession from the woman that accused him. So it played in his favor, but in the bigger picture, I'm kind of like, you you don't have to play you don't have to play nice anymore. You got what you want. You don't have to play nice.
you get to a point in time where you just don't want to be angry anymore. You don't want to be upset. You want to find some form of a closure. And once I realized that having this negative energy and feeling this way and living that way was only adding to the destruction of me, I had to make a change for myself.
That sounds exactly like years ago I interviewed Hurricane Reuben Carter.
Yeah, man.
Did you know his story? Did that inspire you in any way?
Yeah, I actually saw that movie while I was incarcerated. It was crazy just to hear his story, what he went through for so long. And then just like me, received some help from people who just believed in him, believed in his story. And then what he's done since then, the advocacy for furthering the awareness of that fight against wrongful conviction. I feel like in some ways I'm like trying to be on the same steps as him.
Now, how do you deal with the reality that your accuser, false allegations, but never going to suffer any repercussions?
You know what, that used to be a thought of mine, but I think where I am now is just, no one deserves that much power over your life to where you can't, move past a situation or you're still stuck in the past knowing that there's so much for you in the future. There's a statute of limitation of 8 years where after 8 years you can't go after somebody for perjury. So if that is what the law is, and I can only go as far as I can go as far as, making something happen. But honestly, I really don't give too much thought about that.
What about the emotional what ifs? I'm going to be real with you, man. Reading your story and hearing about you, you played with some guys that I've actually played against.
Yeah.
You were a better prospect by me, by far. Long Beach Poly, one of the top linebackers in the nation. There are guys who weren't in this situation who are consumed with the what ifs.
Yeah.
Like, how are you dealing with that emotion?
Yeah, I mean, you could always sit and think about the what ifs, what shoulda, what coulda. I like to think more about the now and where I am. If it wasn't supposed to happen, it simply would not have happened, what I went through. But it did happen. So I think the question becomes more about, not more so of what happened, but what am I going to do about what happened? And so for me, the focus just has been, what can I do today to live the best life that I can live and not really focus on the things that I missed out on. Don't get me wrong, I do miss it. I still want to play, but, it is what it is.
Brian, one of the things that shook me the most, and I just want clarity if this is accurate, because I think it's portrayed in the movie, the false accuser, she was a 16, 17-year-old girl like yourself, but she reached out to you after you via Facebook after you got out of jail. That was so shocking, the audacity of it. When you get an email from her over Facebook, what are you thinking? What are you feeling?
I didn't think it was her. I thought somebody made up this fake account, was trying to play some kind of sick joke. I remember slamming the laptop down and just kind of having this out-of-body experience, not really sure what I just saw. And, I had to really figure out if it was her or not. So I'd ask, would you mind calling me at this number? And sure enough, my phone rang. I answered the phone and it was her.
And then so when she confesses to you in person that she made this up, why did she have a guilty conscience? Why did she?
I still don't know. That's a question that I still do not have an answer to. Every time that I did ask or inquire.
Now, you guys might be mad at me for me saying this, but I don't blame him. And as a man, a woman, getting closure from a woman is a circular argument to where the answer she would have responded at that time when they met up would have been different if he asked her today. So don't get too frustrated and mad over him not knowing what was the motivation or the reason. You can't get no closure from women. That's even in light cases, big cases, small issues or whatever. Don't get too fluttered over trying to get closure from a woman. You're never gonna get the closure that you needed because it's not gonna be the answer that you want. You want to fit the narrative, you want to fit it like this, and she's not going to give you the answers that you want. So don't get too fluttered with him not getting closure, because you're not going to get the closure that you want.
About it, the finger was always pointed at somebody else, never taking the responsibility of the lie itself.
Now, walking into this movie theater, our viewers, myself, did they get it right? Did they portray Brian Banks accurately?
Yeah, it's an accurate portrayal of real life events, and it's in an unlinear form. So it's kind of, it takes off where I'm on parole and I'm living as a registered sex offender and have.
Now, what he's not going to tell you is that one of the black female characters is false. It's a fictional character, and I've gotten this from Dr. Tia-San Johnson, as I stated before. The light-skinned woman that Brian Banks runs across, that I think that directs him to the agency, to help him find his innocence, regain his innocence. That woman was false. So if you it kind of hints that she wasn't real. If you watch the ending of the Brian Banks story, to where everybody gets their own what happens next, kind of like those little typical BET movies, 2 years later, she didn't have a story. So that was an indication that she wasn't real. So based off of Dr. Tia-San Johnson, what he told me was that they just added this female character because they didn't want to make black women look bad.
All of these difficulties of life, and then it kind of goes back and forth from where I've been to show you how I got to where I was and now what I'm doing to get myself free. So a lot of the events that are shown in there are true and accurate, but also, it's Hollywood, so they got to throw a little bit of the spice in there to kind of, bring.
And that's the black female character.
In.
What are you doing today? I know you had a job with the NFL, Roger Goodell, and those guys. You walked away from that. Mm-hmm. How come? What are you doing today?
Yeah, I wouldn't like to say I walked away from it. I think that just some really amazing opportunities popped up after the commissioner gave me an opportunity to work for the NFL in New York. I then got an offer to go film a TV show that furthered the fight against wrongful conviction called Final Appeal. And then right after Final Appeal, I went right into filming this movie in 2017. And then ever since then, I've been focused on traveling, doing my speaking engagements, talking to different audiences and crowds, as well as promoting the film. I just wrote my book, What Set Me Free, that just came out. It's in stores everywhere.
That's right now, man. I've heard this question a lot of times and out of context, and certainly not with people I truly cared about their answer. But you, Brian Banks, A Letter to Your Younger Self, the Brian Banks at Long.
Be patient here in front of you. Trust me.
Giving the young people.
Absolutely. What happened to me is unacceptable. I should have not gone through what I went through. But was I in the wrong place at the wrong time? Yes. And I'm one of the ones to admit that right away. Doesn't mean that I deserve what had happened to me, but how we can eliminate things from happening, if we give more thought to that.
I hate when niggas do this stupid shit. Wrong place, wrong time. Nigga, you can fucking predict the future. You could say that to about anything. Hey, I went to the gas station at 10 p.m. because I forgot to fill it up in the afternoon. If I get robbed, that's not really my fault. I don't know. I hate that this only applies to black men. Literally, wrong place, wrong time. That doesn't apply to any other race, gender, but us. We really need to stop with this bullshit.
Then a lot of stuff that we go through in life, we probably would never experience.
I just want to ask you this, since you've made a movie. There's a lot of rumors there'll be a movie about me one day.
Boy, stop.
I heard about. No, okay, go ahead.
Idris Elba, don't you think he should play me?
I think he's busy. How's the show? Just
he got it.
A blessing from God.
Oh, we can eliminate.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, this was a bullshit interview, and usually they just ask the same they ask them the same 3 to 4 questions, like, what was it like being in jail? Why did she do it? What kept you sane? Was that really, how shocked were you when she called you? It's the same old questions. It's I'm really disappointed, but then again, this is basically a sports network to where just niggas are just like, hey, football. It's trivial bullshit. And like I said, if I was interviewing Brian Banks, he wouldn't be this relaxed talking to me. He'll be in damn tears. He would be in tears because I ain't playing with him. I ain't playing with the questions. I ain't playing with these. Like I'm not gonna go easy. I ain't gonna go easy on him. But this still proves my point. He's still afraid of. I think he's really afraid of men, of black men, of the real hard questions. But maybe this could be a fault of the networks. Like, hey, we're not trying to stir the pot too much, but it could be a little bit of both.